Hello again everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're heading into Split, Croatia, Castella Airport, Lima Delta, Sierra Papa for the VOR Bravo runway 23 circling approach. So another tricky approach today, following on with the series that I'm doing at the moment in partnership with flyuk.aero. So we're going to go through how to input everything we need for the arrival procedure, as you're likely to be if you're flying in from the UK or from that side of Europe, I guess. And then we're going to go ahead and actually complete the procedure as well, and I'll show you guys how. If you're new to the channel, then I'd love it if you click that subscribe button down below and join us as a frequent flyer, and let me know how you get on in the comments below as well if you guys give this a go too. So getting a little close now, and I've already added in with the ATIS information with live MSFS weather our arrival procedure. So to get that result for you guys, head into your destination page, go to the arrivals tab, and then you want to select, as you can see at the very top, VOR 00 Bravo, and then you want stars via LASUL for the OKLA3D Delta, and it will look like that. So then you can go ahead and insert that into the airplane. So there's our procedure all complete, and I'm just going to bring the speed right down so I can explain to you guys what to do. And we need the charts. So using Navigraph today, first we'll look at OKLA3D Delta, which is the arrival procedure we're flying at the moment. If I turn moving maps on, you can see that we're getting close, flying direct towards OKLA, and there's a hold there if it's busy, but also a little one and a box saying that at OKLA expect radar vectoring to Amolu due to traffic, which is the next waypoint there. But we're not going to do that today, we're going to do the procedure pure. So we need 19 DME from SPL, so we need the Split VOR there tuned in, measuring distance from that, and we need to fly off OKLA at a track of 166 degrees to the DVN Devenic NDB 418 going into ADF frequencies in the RadNav page. When we get to 19 miles from Split, measuring our distance there from that VOR, we're going to break off and fly a 17 DME Arc to Amolu. Once we reach that point, with a radial of 269 from the VOR, that's a clue if it's not in the aircraft, as a waypoint, we're then going to fly a track of 127 and come in a little closer for a 13 DME Arc. Throughout this procedure as well, we'll be descending down to 6,000, 5,000. We'll aim for about 5,000 after we pass OKLA, and descending down to about 4,000 by Amolu, and effectively we want to be at 4,000 by LASUL, so there's no great significant rush for descent, but we need to manage it as we go. We're then going to reach 13 DME when we're flying a track of 127 degrees. Once we reach 13 DME with a radial from the SPL Split VOR, we're then going to fly another 13 DME Arc, past Oscar, which is the initial approach fix, still descending down to 4,000, and then when we reach a radial of 210 degrees from the Split VOR, lots of data here, we then need to start thinking about committing to a turn for LASUL, and then we're going to fly out from LASUL, and it's all down to us from that point onwards. So thankfully this procedure here will be programmed into the MCDU if you've selected the arrival procedure that I've explained. So we could just leave it on manage mode, and for the purpose of today I probably will do that so I can show you guys how the aeroplane will deal with it, in contrast to other DME Arc video tutorials that I've done where I've actually flown the DME and tracked it manually myself. Once we get to LASUL, we're then going to leave that direct to the Split VOR, which is a radial of 199 degrees for a track, and we then need to go to the approach tab on Navigraph, scroll down to the bottom, and we want to select VOR Bravo runway 23. So There's our VOR frequency, 115.7. Final approach course is 019. MDA of 2,040 feet. Airport elevation of 78 feet. Our transition altitude here of 10,000 feet. It's gone into the performance page. And our missed approach box as well. So leaving LASUL, track of 019 degrees up to the Split VOR. Once we cross that, if it all goes wrong at that point, we can declare a missed approach, and we can then turn right, climbing turn, and intercept the radial of 123 degrees track straight back up to Humac, which is an NDB station we'll tune, and fly a hold at 5,000 feet. But all well and good, we'll then turn right on a track of 049 degrees. When we get to 3.4 miles from Split, we're then going to turn left and fly our base and final leg. There's a marker here that says do not cross 4.6 DME from Split, so that's something we really need to make sure we don't do, and it will be a descending turn as always for our final approach. If it goes wrong at that point, then we bin it off and we fly runway heading straight over the runway all the way to the Adriatic DVN NDB and hold there at 3,000. So we're going to give this a go, and we're going to put all these frequencies now into the RadNav page of the aeroplane. So just checking our progress, we're at OKLA3D now, so we are a little behind. So we want 418, that's the DVN NDB. We want 115.7. into the VOR frequency. We could do a track of 019 for a course for that. That's our final approach course, and we've got 412 for the Humac hold if we need to bin that off for any reason. So that's all pretty much done. In our performance page, we've got our weather, QNH of 1028, 14 degrees Celsius currently live weather, and winds 220 at 10 knots. There's our transition altitude, our approach speed, and our MDA of 2,040 feet all input ready to go. So we need to track the Split NDB, and also we need to track the Adriatic Split VOR, and we need to track the Adriatic NDB. So let's change these across. Because we want to track both of those. And as you can see, we can pretty much just leave it on a track there if we want to, but we need to go to track FPA. Let's start a bit of a descent down to 4,000. And I'm going to start to target our green dot speed just to help. And we could just leave it unmanaged in this instance. We should be turning right any second, so let's have a little look, see what the aircraft is going to do. Not quite what I thought. So we'll take over and we'll fly to intercept this 17 DME Arc. At the moment, what we're going to be doing is measuring our distance from SPL at the bottom left of the nav display. And we're trying to fly so that we are flying an arc to a MOLU at 17 DME. Obviously, if you leave this on manage mode, the aeroplane should just fly the line all the way around, and as you can see, it will pretty much take you all the way to LASUL. But if it bugs out, then you can just take over and fly it manually yourself. But now we're turning, let's go back into manage mode. We'll just see what the aeroplane does. I'll see how accurately actually it gets to the 17 DME mark. I'm interested to know how accurately it will fly it itself. And all the while descending down slowly to 4,000 feet. Let's configure the aeroplane for landing. So always look at your airport information while this is going on. I'll show you Navigraph again. and you can see there the runway length is 2,550, but for minimum runway occupancy, the rule is you need to try and vacate at alpha, so probably about 1,000 meters before we reach that. If we miss it, then we have to turn around and head back, of course. But it's all dependent on the aircraft's ability. For minimum runway occupancy time. Let's turn the terrain map on. That's just going to help us for the time being. And at this point, I will probably go into the performance page and check. It's already done it. Just to check to make sure the aeroplane's in approach mode, and if not, I'll allow it to. I'll put it into it myself. And we can configure for landing. So all cool. Live weather, but it's a perfect day to be recording this. I think it's probably fair to say that the airport is here somewhere. Looking at the charts and where it sort of indicates land, it's probably the other side of this ridge. It's tracking the 17-mile line very well, so you could just leave it on manage mode. Interestingly, there's our decel marker, but it's put itself into approach phase anyway. And shortly we should expect it, knowing that we're pretty much getting close to a MOLU radial of 269, and that is when the white arrow, because we're tracking the VOR 1 as you can see down there, the white arrow reaches a radial of 269, which is now, and then we turn in a track of 127 degrees. So it'll be interesting to see what the aeroplane does at this point. And I'm going to go flaps 1. Make sure your flight director's off as well if you're in track FPA mode. Don't leave it on as I've just done for the last few minutes. Whoopsie. And when we get to LASUL, we need to reach LASUL at 4,000. We then need to descend down to 2,500 level by 5 miles from Split VOR. So the difference there is we literally got 5 miles from LASUL, and then we need to descend to 2,500 foot. But then we continue our descent down to 2,040, which is our minimum. So we have to be level at that minimum, our MDA of 2,040 feet, by the time we reach the Split VOR for this procedure. But if you're leaving it unmanaged, make sure you do keep an eye on what the aeroplane's doing, because in absence of the flight plan manager currently in the flybywire A32NX, it's got the tendency to do some weird things. So as you can see, OSCOL doesn't exist. I would imagine it's R249 in this, but OSCOL should be here, and that's our initial approach fix, interestingly, so it's odd that it's not there. And I'm using the Navigraph Nav Data. But 13.6, and we're turning to fly the next radial. That's pretty good. And it should be a 13 DME radial arc. Before we commit to a descent beyond LASUL, we need to go flaps 2 at least to increase the drag on the airframe, and the airport's down there somewhere. We can't currently see it, but there it is actually. How are we doing? Flying the 13 quite nicely actually. Use the charts to your advantage, so you can see that these blobs here are actually mapped on the Navigraph charts. This little blob of land here is where the DVN NDB is, so we can kind of expect that, and we can tally that up using the VOR mode, the DVN green arrow, and that kind of matches up with what we've just been looking at. Okay, so we're tracking 13 miles currently, but let's go back to managed selected heading mode rather, so we can do this ourselves at this point, because it is starting to fly us a little wide. And we want a radial of 232 degrees, which is just coming up now. So you can see how the aeroplane, if we left it on managed mode, it takes it off quite wide, which we don't want. There we go, that's probably a bit better. And now our next step on the maps, on the charts, show you guys with the moving map, is waiting for that radial of 210. So once we cross that, we're then going to turn left to LASUL, fly a radial of 199, or effectively we'll be lining up the blue arrow to be a straight line straight to the SPL VOR. That's our course of 019 degrees, straight to the runway. But at this point we want the VOR Bravo charts up and ready to go for us. And flying that DME Arc manually myself at the moment still. We're waiting for the back of the white arrow, we're tracking the needles here, to touch 210. Let's get 2500 ready. We can start a bit of a descent there. There's actually a hold at LASUL as well. And that white arrow now touching. So that's our radial of 210. So now our task is to align the blue arrow on our nav display to show that we're going direct to Split. Now I'll go flaps 2. That's going to increase drag on the airframe quite a lot and help slow us down. We're in the final section of the procedure now. So if we go back onto the ARC mode or the nav mode, you'll see that we could leave it unmanaged up to SPL, but then that's it, there's nothing else. So again, we could do that if we wanted to. Let's come out a little more. While I'm doing this, I'll just get Navigraph back up with the moving map blip so you guys can see roughly where we're at. There's our approach plates at the bottom of the screen as well, showing that at 5 DME we want to be at 2500. So we've got 5 miles to go. Pretty much heading directly to the airport now. And let's get that turn in. track 019. Lining up the blue needle nicely there. And obviously we're tracking the split VOR. If we had to bin this off and go around, then we're flying the radial up to the next NDB. So we have to intercept a radial of 123 degrees. And that would mean then we're trying to work to get the back arrow at 123 degrees over here and fly direct to that. So 8 miles and we're just level at 2,500, which is good. I'm going to set our next target, which is our minimums, 2,040. We can't do that. The closest we can get is 2,000, but that's below our minimum, so we'll have to select 2,100. And I'll wait to trigger that. When we get to 5. It's got auto brake low. We need to arm the spoilers, of course, as well. Finish our landing checks. Lights as required, seatbelt signs, everything all done as well. If you guys give this a go, let me know how you get on in the comments. And there's our landing memos now appearing as well, reminding us of a couple of steps we need to complete. And I'm using a free flight recorder tool as well. A little bit of drift, so I'm just positioning ourselves to line up with the VOR a little better. .7, so now let's go flaps 3. Turn the terrain map off because it's just going to get a little confusing for us. There's the airport.
Above.
Continue. .1 miles to Split. And we know we want to fly out on a track of 049. 1 mile to go. Let's start the turn. Gear down. And we're flying over the VOR now. You can see the white needle starting to switch. Let's show we're just flown straight over the top of it. Flying out on a track of 049 degrees. And now we're going to be looking for the value on the bottom left here, VOR 1 SPL, to reach 3.4 DME. We've got our ADF ready as well, so if we have to do a missed approach at this point, now that we are committed, we're going to head towards the green arrow after we've flown runway heading. And now we want full flaps. Last bit of prep done. There's the runway. Set our missed approach. It's a 3000, and we'll start a bit of a descent now. We're at 2.6 at the moment. 2.8. It's getting really windy. 3. Eco members no blue. 4. Turning. Starting to think the wind has just absolutely switched round on us. Keep an eye on your rate of descent. And I've turned a bit sharp initially because it says we can't cross 4.6 DME. We're at 4.1 now. So I've made a bit of a sharper turn initially. It looks like all of a sudden we've gone into a tailwind as well, which is not ideal, but I'll carry on for the purpose of this. Let's bring our nose up slightly. Let's see. You see 4 white pappies currently. Yeah, winds have just dropped off to calm, which is good. Good sign for us. 1 knot or so. And make use of your viewpoints. And there we go. Reset the view for the landing. And our winds switch back round now, 220 at 6 knots. Doesn't help when the weather's indecisive. And trying to vacate at alpha if we can. We've set low auto brake, we've got decel as well. And using a bit of reverse thrust as well. APU. And to come off of manual braking. Here's alpha. Bring those slats and flaps in. And I've actually got a freeware flight recorder app that I've been using to record this little tutorial as well. So in the background, in addition to the recording of this filming, it's been saving a replay as well, so we'll be able to watch it back. Quite confusing taxi layout, but this is an auto-gen airport, so we'll carry on as we are at the moment. APU's just gone available. Bleed. And there we go, we'll enter this taxi line. And we'll get parked up in a second. So there we go. Let's have a little look at the replay and see what that looked like. But I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know how you get on in the comments. If the weather's playing up as well, I'm guessing this could be quite a tricky approach to do. But again, yet another nice one. Hope you've enjoyed it. Do click subscribe down below. Join us as a frequent flyer. And let's have a little look at the replay. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it.